I sat in our living room, a space that had always felt like a sanctuary of simplicity. The walls were painted a neutral eggshell, the furniture was modest, and the air usually smelled of jasmine tea. But tonight, the atmosphere was poisoned. My eyes were locked on a small, cream-coloured crossbody bag Zoya had left on the sofa. It was a simple bag, yet next to it lay the source of my agony, a phone. It wasn't just any phone, it was a sleek, rose gold iPhone, its glass surface reflecting the dim, amber glow of the floor lamp. It was polished, unmistakable, and obscenely expensive. It was the kind of device that cost more than my 3 months' salary combined. My hand hovered in the air, trembling like a leaf in a gale. I felt like a trespasser in my own home. This is impossible, I whispered. My own voice sounded foreign to me, thin and reedy against the vast silence of the apartment. Memory is a cruel, selective thing. As I stared at that masterpiece of modern technology, my mind dragged me back to the Zoya I thought I knew. Before we married, she used to carry my old, hand-me-down Android. The screen was a spider-webbed mess of cracks in the corner. The camera produced images that looked like they were taken underwater, and she had to carry a power bank everywhere because the battery died if you so much as looked at it. She never complained, not once. I remembered a rainy Tuesday 3 years ago when I apologised for not being able to buy her a new one. She had tucked a lock of hair behind her ear, smiled that radiant, effortless smile, and said, "As long as I can hear your voice, Maz, the phone is perfect. Why chase things we don't need?" But now, this rose gold slab of luxury sat there, wrapped in a whimsical pink silicone case, mocking everything I believed about our life. My heart wasn't just beating, it was thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird, frantic and desperate to escape the cage of my chest. The shadow in the kitchen. I didn't touch it at first. I was paralysed by a hollow fear gnawing at my gut. It wasn't the fear of getting caught snooping. Zoya was in the shower, the muffled sound of running water providing a rhythmic backdrop to my paranoia. I was terrified that my suspicions were right. I was terrified that the woman I loved was a stranger. Zoya was a gentle soul, too gentle for the jagged edges of this world, or so I had convinced myself. She was the woman who haggled gently at the traditional market, not to save money, but because she enjoyed the conversation with the vendors. She never demanded jewellery, never scrolled through luxury catalogues, never sighed when we walked past high-end restaurants. When we first moved into this apartment, I sat her down and laid out our reality. With a heavy heart, I told her that after rent, utilities and my debt repayments, our daily budget for food was barely 10,000 rupiah, roughly 60 cents. I expected tears. I expected a difficult conversation about sacrifice. Instead, she had simply reached across the table, squeezed my hand and whispered, "Inshallah, it's enough, Maz. A full heart makes a full stomach." And the terrifying part? It was enough. For 2 years, our table was never empty. There was always steaming white rice, fresh vegetables, and the occasional protein. I praised her frugality. I bragged to my friends about my simple wife who knew the value of $1. I felt like a king because she made 60 cents look like a banquet. But then, the cracks began to show. Small, jagged lines in the porcelain of our reality. I remembered a Friday 3 months ago. I had been sent home early because the office AC had failed. I wanted to surprise her, to perhaps take her for a walk in the park. But as I unlocked the front door, I was hit by a scent that didn't belong in a 60-cent household. It was the aroma of sop iga, beef short rib soup. It was rich, fatty, and infused with the scent of star anise and nutmeg. I stood frozen in the hallway. I knew the price of beef ribs. I knew that 60 cents wouldn't even cover the cost of the celery and leeks, let alone the prime cuts of meat simmering in that pot. When I questioned her, she just gave a light, airy laugh, the kind of sound that usually disarmed me instantly. "The butcher had some leftovers he was going to throw away, Maz. I got lucky. You're overthinking again." I wanted to believe her. I desperately needed to believe her. But the seed was planted. And tonight, looking at that iPhone, the seed had grown into a dark, suffocating forest. The Ledger of Secrets. The water in the shower stopped. My time was running out. I grabbed the phone. The screen lit up instantly. My breath hitched. There was no passcode, no Face ID. It was wide open, an invitation to see the truth. "Why didn't you lock it, Zoe?" I muttered, my voice cracking. Did she trust me that much? Or was she so confident in her deception that she didn't feel the need to hide? The home screen was meticulously organised, reflecting her personality. There were no dating apps, no hidden folders, no encrypted messaging services like Telegram or Signal, just the standard utility apps. I felt a momentary surge of relief, a wave of shame for doubting her. Then, my thumb hovered over the Notes app. I tapped it. It wasn't a diary of an affair. It wasn't a list of grievances about our marriage. It was a ledger, a cold, hard record of numbers. Monday, 0. Tuesday, 0. Wednesday, 0. Friday, plus 350,000. Sunday, plus 1,200,000. If there is one thing more lethal to a marriage than a screaming match, it's a silence filled with suspicion. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like peace, but like the heavy, ionized air before a lightning strike. You can feel it in your lungs, a suffocating density that tells you something is about to break. I scrolled down. The numbers grew. The frequency increased. There were entries for medical supplies, premium groceries, and iPhone installment paid in full. My head spun. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. "What is this?" I breathed. The air in the room felt thin, as if the oxygen was being sucked out by the sheer weight of the numbers on the screen. There were no names attached to the payments, no company logos, just the rhythmic arrival of cash on days she told me she was visiting her mother or going to the library. I was about to check the banking app when the bedroom door creaked open. I jumped, the iPhone nearly slipping from my sweaty palms. Zoya was standing there. Her hair was wrapped in a white towel, a few damp strands framing her face. She was wearing her old, faded batik robe, the one I had bought her for our first anniversary. She didn't look like a woman with secrets. She looked like my wife. But she didn't look surprised. She didn't gasp or try to snatch the phone away. She just stood there, her eyes calm and steady. "Are you looking at my phone, Mas?" she asked. Her voice was as soft as a breeze, but it carried the weight of a mountain. I cleared my throat, the guilt and the suspicion clashing in my throat. "Yes, I'm sorry, I was looking for my charger and I saw this. Zoya, where did this come from?" I gestured to the phone, then to the notes on the screen. "Where is this money coming from?" She walked toward me, every step deliberate. She didn't sit on the sofa. She sat on the coffee table directly in front of me, forcing me to meet her gaze. "Curious about what, specifically?" she asked. I opened my mouth to shout, to demand answers, to express my hurt. But the words died in my throat. Instead, I whispered the only thing that mattered. "The money, the ribs, the phone. Who are you, Zoya?" The silence returned, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was expectant. For the first time in our marriage, Zoya didn't smile to ease the tension. Her expression was solemn, almost clinical. "Mas," she said, "if I am completely honest with you, do you promise to listen before you judge? Do you promise not to let your pride dictate your reaction?" The mention of pride stung. "I promise," I said. She took a long, steadying breath. "I never lied to you about the 60 cents. I used exactly that amount for our daily groceries. I kept the receipts. I followed your rules because I knew how much it meant to you to feel like the provider, to feel like we were living simply in honor of your brother's memory. Then how do you explain the steak, the ribs, this?" I pointed at the iPhone. "I traded something," she said. My mind went to the darkest places. I thought of the stories you hear in the city, of sugar daddies and clandestine meetings. My jaw tightened. "You traded what?" She looked me dead in the eye. Her gaze was crystal clear, devoid of even a shred of shame. "Time and empathy." I froze. "I don't understand. Mas, you spend all day in an office surrounded by people. yet you come home exhausted by the noise. But this city is full of people who are surrounded by noise and are dying of silence. She leaned in closer. There are elderly people in the luxury high-rises 3 blocks away. Their children are in Singapore or New York. They have millions in the bank, but they haven't had a real conversation in months. There are young professionals who are so burnt out they've forgotten how to cook a meal that doesn't come in a plastic container. There are the sick who just need someone to read to them. I began to see the shape of it. I don't work for a company, she continued. I don't have a job in the traditional sense. I am a companion. I go to Mrs. Adnan's penthouse on Fridays. I listen to her talk about her late husband for 4 hours. I cook her the soup her mother used to make. She pays me more in an afternoon than you make in a week. Not because I'm a chef, but because I'm the only person who looks her in the eye and listens. She gestured to the phone. The iPhone was a gift from a client's daughter. She was so grateful that I stayed with her father during his final nights that she insisted I have a way to be reached at all times. I didn't want to tell you because I knew. Knew what? I asked, my voice trembling. I knew you would forbid it. You're a good man, Maz. You're a noble man. But you are also a man paralysed by the fear of not being enough. You wanted us to live in poverty to prove our virtue, but I saw no virtue in being hungry when I had a gift for healing people's loneliness. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I sank back into the sofa cushions, the iPhone feeling like a lead weight in my hand. I had spent 2 years feeling proud of my authority. I thought I was the one protecting Zoya. I thought my rigid budgeting and my insistence on a simple life were the pillars holding up our home. I thought I was the hero of this story. But the truth was far more humbling. Zoya was the architect. She had built a bridge between my ego and our reality. She had allowed me to believe in my fantasy of the simple provider, while she quietly ensured we had the best medical care, the best food, and a safety net I didn't even know existed. She hadn't betrayed me. She had managed me. You think I'm weak, I said, the realization tasting like ash in my mouth. No, she said, reaching out to cup my face. Her hands were warm. I think you are human. You were so focused on the 10,000 rupiah that you forgot to look at the woman standing in front of you. I'm not just your wife, Maz. I'm a person with skills, with a brain, and with a heart that knows how to navigate this world better than you give me credit for. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realised I had been living with a genius, a strategist of the heart. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark, listening to the steady rhythm of Zoya's breathing. I felt a profound sense of humiliation, but beneath it, a strange, new kind of respect. I had been so busy being a detective of her shadows that I had missed the light she was bringing into the house. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I went into the kitchen. The fridge was humming quietly, stocked with fresh produce that I now knew the true cost of. The kitchen was spotless, organised by a woman who ran a business of empathy, while I was busy worrying about the price of onions. When Zoya walked in, she didn't look for an apology. She didn't look for a fight. She just picked up the kettle. Coffee? She asked. I looked at her, and then I looked at the 10,000 rupiah note sitting on the counter, the one I had left there the night before. It looked so small, so insignificant. Zoya, I said. Yes, Maz? Teach me. She paused, a small, genuine smile finally breaking across her face. Teach you what? How to be as smart as you. How to see the world for what it is, not just what I'm afraid it is. She laughed, that same light, airy laugh that I used to think was a distraction. Now I knew it was the sound of someone who was truly free. It's simple, Maz, she said, handing me a mug. Stop counting the money and start counting the moments. And for heaven's sake, stop overthinking the soup. I took a sip of the coffee. It was rich, bold, and perfectly brewed. For the first time in a long time, the silence in the room didn't feel like a storm. It felt like home. Sometimes the biggest secrets live inside ordinary homes. Subscribe for more stories that blur the line between love, trust, and mystery.